Welcome to Football Letter Live. Tonight we welcome one of the all-time great Penn State linebackers, Paul Posluszny, and an alumni chapter that's close to home, the Center County chapter, located right here in the heart of State College. The Nittany Lions are 1-0, and we've got highlights from last week's victory. Share your questions and shout-outs in the chat areas and YouTube and Facebook, and we'll share as many as we can tonight. If you love Penn State football, then you're in the right place. This is Football Letter Live. Where else would you rather be than right here talking Penn State football? Welcome. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. Paul Posluszny is here. Kathy Hume is joining us from the Center County chapter. And as always, I'm with my co-host, John Petishnock. John, welcome. How are you doing this evening?
No, I'm doing fantastic. I'm still on the rush from the Madison trip last weekend. That was one of the best trips that, well, look, as I was going to say, it's one of the best trips I've been on in a while, but it was the first trip that I've been on in a while. And even like from the first moment we got there, from the alumni mixer, that Friday night was phenomenal. The pep rally was fun. And of course, you know, we'll talk about the game here in a little bit, but it was just, I'm feeling good is the short answer. I'm feeling good, and I'm happy, looking forward to week 2.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to be previewing the game with Ball State a little bit later in the show. If you can't make it here to Happy Valley to cheer on the Nittany Lions in our first home game in about 18 months, we're going to also tell you how you can attend an alumni chapter game watch and how you can still feel the energy and celebrate with fellow Penn Staters, even if you're not here in Happy Valley. But before we get to that, this fall, Penn State will join its Big Ten institutional partners for One Big Week, a 7-day event that challenges university communities to channel school pride into student support. From midnight on September 12th through 11:59 on September 18th, Penn State and alumni and friends can participate by making a gift to the Student Care and Advocacy Student Emergency Funds, or to one of our 42 featured emergency funds at Penn State colleges and campuses across the Commonwealth. There is more information that you can find. We're going to share the link in the chats, in the comments on Facebook and on YouTube to get more information on how you can participate in One Big Week and hopefully have Penn State rise to the top of the Big Ten in support of our students. Well, hey, John, big weekend in Madison, as you alluded to. First of all, phenomenal Big Ten city to visit. Even better, Big Ten city to visit and take a victory home from. Let's go to some of the video highlights from that game and take a look at some of the videos that we were able to get.
Yeah, so it was just, I mean, we got to Camp Randall early. That was the first time that I was actually at Camp Randall for a game, and just, someone who loves college football and who loves and appreciates kind of like what it's like to be in a college town. Madison should definitely be, at the top of any destination for any Big Ten fans. So it took the offense a little bit to get going. I actually thought the first half was incredibly entertaining, and it was a good game. That's the way that I viewed it. I think our Letterman guest tonight would agree. Paul Posluszny, we were talking to him about that. That was a great, gritty defensive game. And then, you saw Jahan Dotson get loose in the second half. You felt like that was inevitable. Mike Yurcich, first game as an offensive coordinator, you knew he was going to take some shots down the field. That is downtown. And look, I mean, if there's one thing that you can depend on, it's Penn State's defense stepping up when it needs to. And so it was like the old adage of, run the ball, control the ball, force 3 turnovers, take care of the ball, and play timely offense and stout defense. And so, it was an incredible game. It was an incredible vantage point from the field. Here we got Noah Kane bullying in for a touchdown. It was good to have him back on the field. And so, we had Penn State fans traveling. And so what was it like interacting with Penn State fans during the game? Because we did hear a few "We Are" cheers throughout Camp Randall.
Oh, absolutely. Penn Staters travel well, as you know, John, and they showed up in Camp Randall. As you can tell, the stadium is sold out there, but wherever Penn Staters could get tickets, they were getting tickets. You talked about our stout defense. There you see the interception there at the end to help seal the victory. Speaking of stout victory, John, here's that defense of that goal line stand at the end to seal the victory.
Yeah, this was just, we were there, and it's like, if you can stop Wisconsin on the 1 yard line in 4 plays and then block the field goal, that was tremendous. I think the stat was Wisconsin ran 90 plus plays, or at least 70 plus plays, and they ended up with 10 points. Like Brent Pry, he is, you talk about defensive coordinators in the country, Brent Pry, he's at the top of that list. And, I think it's also worth noting, and James Franklin talked about this last week. He kind of joked about he missed the booze from last year. You pull up to a stadium and there's nobody there, and he kind of thought, he was looking forward to some of that. But he also thought, people are just going to be happy to be watching college football again. And so, just being able to walk around Madison after the game obviously felt good with the win, but it just kind of felt good to be back on the college campus with energy. And, even though you have like opposing fans, like you got, there's a shared love of college football and what it stands for. And so, it was just such a great way to kick off the season. And of course, if you are in the first front rows of a Penn State football game on the road, like it's a near certainty that you will have an opportunity to celebrate with James Franklin. And if you dress the part, he will notice. So that was such a great way to cap off the game. And it's so much fun to share those or to capture those moments and then share them with Penn Staters, because you see a different side of James Franklin and other players, and coaches. They put in so much time and effort and energy, and you know what? They deserve to celebrate when they have those moments. And there were some backflips too. And so it was good to see the team. It was good. It was a good weekend all around.
Absolutely. John, we got the weekend started off right with the mixer with our Madison chapter. Shout out to our volunteers with the Penn State Alumni Association Madison chapter. You got to hear a little bit about their story here last week. You could see Miles Diefenbach there, captain, and Letterman here at Penn State came out and got the crowd all kinds of fired up. We were joined by Eric Gaspich, the former Mike Man, and Zach Soa, the former Nittany Lion there, to just get the day started off right. There's Zach doing 21 one-arm push-ups, and Eric kind of cheering him on in the background there. But what a great environment to get ready for that big victory that we ended up pulling off over Wisconsin.
Yeah, and Miles got a standing ovation, very much deserved. And so it's, to be able to connect Letterman with alumni, and Miles talked a little bit about, not just his playing career, but like he talked about, look, your support is it's noticed. Like when we're on the field, like we can hear you, we can see you. And so I think fans and alumni, they know that, but when they're able to hear that, firsthand from a Letterman who has such an inspiring story and took time out of his day to stop by the event and talk with folks. We asked him last week, it's kind of short notice, and he's like, I'll be there. Just, tell me the place and I'll be there. And so, like you and I talked about this, Miles has a standing invite to any Alumni Association event for the end of time and just let us know you're coming, Miles. We'll take care of you. And so it's, it was a special weekend, but what made it special was that you shared it with Penn Staters, people who have a common love and interest and adoration for Penn State. And so that's, even more so than some of the plays, like that's kind of those are the memories that you remember. I mean, look at Eric and Zach. I mean, they're going to remember that for a long time.
Well, certainly a deserved standing ovation for Miles Diefenbach, member of the 2012 team, right? Those guys are credited with coming back and saving the Penn State program in one of our darkest hours. And so absolutely well-deserved. If you're watching Football Letter Live, welcome into the program. Thanks for joining us. Share your comments. Paul Posluszny's with us. He wants to take questions from the audience. He wants to talk about what you want to talk about. So make sure you're submitting your questions in the comments and in the chat on Facebook and on YouTube. And we're going to go ahead and give away a prize pack to somebody who submits a question tonight. It's going to be a random drawing at the end. We'll announce who wins next week on Football Letter Live. But throw all your questions in there. Share the program out on your social media channels. Let's get Penn Staters together tonight to talk about Penn State football. So let's get right into it. All right. First up, we have Kathy Hume. Kathy is a 1996 graduate of Penn State. She is the president of our Center County chapter. The Center County chapter was founded in 1984 and is officially recognized as the hometown chapter of the Penn State Alumni Association. They host regular events, including local and regional tours, social and networking hours, happy hours. They are one of the strongest groups marching in the homecoming parade each year. They volunteer all over campus, including spend a summer day, and they've reached the Alumni Association's Elm level status in 2020. Welcome into the program. Great alumni volunteer, Kathy Hume. Kathy, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I mentioned the Elm level status. I see your banner in the background. 2020 was not the first year that you all achieved that status, and you do that by delivering some great programs and services to our alumni. Talk a little bit about what the Center County chapter is all about and your key programs and services.
So, we're, as you said, the hometown chapter. We're very seasoned. Is my way of saying we have a lot of retirees, but also some pretty passionate people because, you have to be passionate to come back to Center County, right? You just, you're here and you're all about it. So we have also a very ambitious schedule of programs and activities that we do all year long. So whether it's our monthly social happy hours, our annual picnic, we do bus trips to New York, to Washington, D.C., the Flight 93 Memorial. We do some great community service. We have a community growing program. We do, as you said, Paul, a lot of volunteer work on campus, spend a summer day, accepted students. You'll find our members at the All Sports Museum. You might see them at the welcome desk at Hints. And then we do fundraisers for scholarships. This year we did a big yard sale. That was something new for us. So lots of good things going on.
So you've been volunteering for a while, Kathy. You were previously elected to Alumni Council. You obviously have a lifelong passion for Penn State. How did you get connected with the Center County chapter and eventually take on a leadership role with the group?
So yes, I have been a volunteer for a long time. My husband and I moved up here about 5 years ago, and I happened to run into Marty Duffy. And if anybody knows Marty Duffy, she's a whirlwind. And once you get caught in that whirlwind, there's no getting out. So as soon as Marty found out that I had been on the Penn State Great Valley board for 13 years, she had me at the first chapter event and then on the board. And once you're on the board, it just, progresses from there. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Talk about how the chapter has grown over the years, Kathy, and how you kind of sustain the programs? I know volunteers are the backbone of everything we do here at the Alumni Association. Talk about the great volunteers that you work with.
So, oh my gosh, Paul, we talk about senior moments and I just had one.
That's all right. That's all right.
So yeah, so our chapter, our chapter members love giving back to the university, right? So can you ask me the question again?
Yeah, you have some great volunteers that you work with. I think of Mike Erdman. I think of Dale, Eileen, right? A number of great people involved. How has the chapter been able to keep so many great volunteers involved?
So yeah, so we've grown over the years. We started out, I think my understanding was when the chapter first started, it was, a monthly meeting and an annual dinner, right? So then we went from there to, Janet Campolongo became the president about 13 years ago, and she started to introduce some new programs, and then it just started to take off from there. So in the last 5 years, we've just introduced so much new programming that has tried to pull people in. So no matter what your interest is, you can get involved in the Center County chapter, right? So we started a group this year called We're Better Together. So the purpose of that was to try to get some of our members together to go out to some of these local businesses and try to give them the support that they've needed locally with COVID and all of that stuff happening. And so I think it's just adding programming that's really made the difference.
So speaking of, staying involved, your chapter is currently running a Thon scholarship and fundraiser. And I know that you're excited about that. Can you share a little bit about the background information on that? And also, if Penn Staters are listening and they want to get, involved and contribute, how can they do that? How can they help?
Yes, so we have something running right now. It's called the Great Odds Raffle. And the reason it's called the Great Odds Raffle is because you have great odds of winning. We're only selling 100 tickets. So, and there's 3 top prizes, 3,000, 1,500, and 500. And so your odds of winning are basically 1 in 33. So if you would like to buy a ticket and support the chapter, which we would greatly appreciate, you can go to our website, psucenter.org. You can log on to the link, and the link will take you to basically purchase your ticket online, and then we'll send you your stub in the mail. So that would be awesome if somebody would like to help us out.
So how can alumni who are interested in getting involved learn more about the Center County chapter?
So you can go to our website, obviously, Paul, psucenter.org, and you can sign up to be a member. All of our programming is there, so you can see events and you can come to events. We don't turn anybody away. So if you want to show up just to see what we're about, we would love to have you. You can look for our volunteer opportunities and participate that way. And you'll see us everywhere. Basically, we're downtown tonight at Lion Bash. For those that don't know, that's living in one neighborhood, and it's on South Allen Street tonight. So there's lots of community involvement, but you'll see chapter members down there trying to let the community know that we're here and encouraging them to get involved.
So we're fortunate here in Happy Valley. We have such a strong town gown connection with State College and Penn State, the university. How did campus involvement become such an integral part of the group? And can you also share a little bit about, what is it personally rewarding for you about giving back and spending so much time on campus and helping ensure that the next generation of Penn Staters can have the experience that we all want them to have?
Yeah, so our members are so passionate about giving back to Penn State, right? So, it is a reason why people come back here. And so you have service to the university, but you also have the ability to work with students. So you might find us at Career Services Day, mentoring students, or, just answering questions for them. And so the connection is so strong. So I think in 2019, we did about 11,000 service hours back to the university. So it is the lifeblood of the hometown chapter, and our members just really love supporting the university. And as far as personally, the ability to help where help is needed is its own reward, and it's not just helping Penn State, it's helping our community here, John. So somebody quoted to me the other day that actually 25% of Center County lives below the poverty line. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, because once you get out of the town, a lot of people in these surrounding communities need our help. And so our chapter will buy Christmas gifts for children that might not get at Christmas. Like I said, I mentioned the growing program. So there's a tremendous need for food for families. And so, it's what it's all about. It's like, how do you live if there's people that need you? So you have to do the right thing. You have to step up.
So Kathy, you mentioned Lion Bash. There's energy back in State College, right? There's people who are kind of converging on State College now, starting yesterday. They'll be here through Sunday with the home football game against Ball State. Ball State, defending MAC champions, coming in with a strong program in here to Happy Valley. Do you have a prediction for this Saturday's game? What do you think the score will be, and who's going to win?
Oh, well, we're going to win, Paul. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind we're going to win. Score 45-13 is my prediction, and I just hope our defense had some time to rest. They played a lot of football last week.
They did play a lot of football, but there's no rest for the weary. Just like for our Center County chapter, you have one event or a program, or you're involved in something on campus, and it's right on to the next thing. Just like a football season, we're right into our next game. Kathy, thanks so much for joining us on Football Letter
Thanks for
Live,
having us, Paul,
and for all you do for Penn State. We're so grateful.
Thanks so much. Thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy.
You're watching Football Letter Live. We are here back again Thursday night. I'm with my co-host, John Petishnock. And John, we are going to bring in a legend of Penn State football here next. Why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest?
Yeah, we're absolutely thrilled tonight to welcome Paul Posluszny. If there's one person who epitomizes linebacker it just might be Paul. And so he was a standout at Penn State from 2003 to 2006, still stands second all time as the all-time leading tackler at Penn State with 372 tackles, two-time All-American, two-time Bednarik Award winner for top defensive player in college football. And we're also going to mention he was an academic All-American at Penn State too, and he's continuing his education, and we're going to get to that. He also had a sterling NFL career. We'll talk about that, and not to gloss over the fact that he was a recent up for induction into the College Football Hall of Fame. And so we could sit here and talk a lot more about Paul's accolades, but let's just bring Paul on and have him kind of talk about his time at Penn State. And so Paul, welcome to Football Letter Live. We're absolutely thrilled that you're joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here with you guys. So I'm excited to talk about anything you'd like to hear about, Penn State or my time there. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's a lot to get to, and we'll get to as much as we can. Maybe a good place to start is that you grew up in Pennsylvania. You won a state title in high school. How did growing up in Pennsylvania impact your journey to Penn State and how you viewed Penn State?
It really changed my decision making when it came to where to go to school, because when I visited Penn State for the first time, I learned about the history of linebacker U, right? And you see highlights of Brandon Short and LeVar Arrington and Shane Conlon and these iconic names, and you say, wow, like these guys are from Western Pennsylvania. They represent the entire state of PA. And they came to this great school where football was such a prominent and important thing, and Joe Paterno and the history and the story behind Penn State. And that swayed my decision, because I was looking at Pitt. Pitt was 30 minutes from where I grew up, but once I visited Penn State and realized how important tradition and legacy and doing things right were at Penn State, I said, there's no other place you'd rather be.
Paul, highly recruited out of Aliquippa, the pride of Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. What was it about Penn State that made you feel like it was at home? You talked about kind of the lineage of linebackers, right? And that you're the next name on that list. And that lineage has continued to today up to Micah Parsons, who was just drafted into the NFL. But what was it about Penn State that kind of made you feel like I was home?
It was the people. Tom Bradley was our defensive coordinator, and he was my recruiting coordinator he recruited me. So having the opportunity to meet him early on in the process and learn about Penn State through him, who he is Penn State through and through, right? Have the opportunity to learn about the story and the traditions of Penn State through him. And then meeting our linebacker coach, Ron Vanderlinden, and saying, man, what an unbelievable guy to have the opportunity to learn from. And just interacting with some of the players that were there at that time. I remember when I took my official visit, had an opportunity to meet Tyler Reed, right? So great offensive lineman for Penn State. Andrew Gooman, who really, really welcomed me into the Penn State family, even though I was a 17-year-old kid from Hopewell High and just verbally committed, but he was so welcoming. And I said, wow, these are guys that are dedicated to doing things right. And it's a group that I want to be around.
So a few months ago, we shared a photo of you and Michael Robinson and Alan Zamitis, and people just went crazy. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about 2005 team. Maybe a good place to start is, what are the memories that you have of that team that you remember? And are there still guys on that team that you still talk to on a regular basis?
I mean, the special memories surrounding that team are the teammates and the people that were a part of that. So those guys are my best friends to this day. You showed a picture of AQ Shipley. AQ Shipley is a great friend of mine. We competed against each other growing up in middle school and high school, and then our Penn State teammates. Sean Lee, another guy that was a part of that team, and then some of the older players on that team, like talked about. Michael Robinson, who just went to his football camp 2 years ago to help out. It was the people and the types and the players that were a part of that team that made it so special. And the fact that, what an unbelievable environment to be in, right? And the year before, we're coming out of some dark times for when concerning Penn State football with our record, and we're not doing well, we're not winning games, and people are saying Coach Paterno should step down. And those group of men, and really it was led by Michael Robinson, Alan Zamitis, that senior class that said, we're going to turn things around. Like this Penn State is a great organization, a great university, and has a great historic football program, and we're going to do things the right way, and we're going to turn things around. And they really led that charge, and that led into that great season.
Paul, let's stick with that 05 team for a second, and even kind of allude back to the 04 team, right? Two teams with really different results at the end of the year. How do you go from the kind of performance in 2004, right, which was, not one of our best seasons in Penn State football history, right, to one of the iconic seasons in Penn State football? What's the difference? Was it one kind of huge, kind of big aha moment, or was it just, as Coach Paterno would say, a lot of little things make it a big thing?
Definitely say I would never disagree with anything Coach Paterno says. So definitely a lot of little things. But the thing is, so we came out of 2004 and we were saying, man, we were so close. Like, our record does not look good on paper, but we were so close. So what can we do so that, after the 2005 season, we're not saying we were so close. We're saying, okay, we had the success that the entire Penn State family wants. And like I said, it was guys like our Michael Robinson and, Andrew Gooman had just left, Tyler Reed. Those types of guys really stepped forward and said, we're going to make sure that we do everything that we can the absolute right way and the best way so that we can have the type of success that Penn State football and the Penn State community deserves.
You know, Paul, if there's a word that I would associate with that 2005 team, it's resiliency, right? You overcome the 2004 season, right? You have a game which I still think we won against Michigan, but the scoreboard showed a little different at the end of the game. And yet you didn't let one loss become two losses, right? You persevered through the season. And then the epic game in the Orange Bowl against Florida State, which went on deep into the evening. Is that a word that you would associate with that team as well, resiliency, and kind of talk a little bit about how that kind of manifested itself with your team?
I think that's a perfect word to represent that group and that team, just because there were so many challenges that we had been through already. If you think about the two previous years, the 03 and 04 seasons, and let's just call it what is the nightmare that those were. Those are all guys that experienced that came to Penn State with the belief that we are going to be an outstanding program, and you're going to have an opportunity to go to bowl games and be successful and have the experience that you want going into Penn State. And that didn't happen for 2 years. So those guys fought through that environment and said, okay, now is the time to make a change. And even though there were some challenges early on, you mentioned the Michigan game, and thinking about Florida State and everything that it took, or triple overtime to beat that team. I mean, a great Florida State team. That is resilient is a perfect word, for those group of guys, because they were willing to get the job done under any circumstances and with an attitude of whatever it takes.
Yeah, let's stick with the Orange Bowl. Coach Joe Paterno had such an impressive record in bowl games. In the weeks leading up to the Orange Bowl, what do you remember about the preparation, and just how prepared and confident did you feel going into that game?
We felt so squared away because we had such a great trust in our coaching staff that they knew exactly what we needed to do to prepare to have success on the field. We got down to Florida early to prepare and practice and be in that environment. And we knew this just was a great opportunity to perform well on a national stage. And the dynamic of Bobby Bowden, right, versus Joe, two legendary, iconic coaches, battling out together on the field. It was just an unbelievable environment to be in. But as players, we felt that, all right, we are completely prepared. We know what the challenge is in front of us, but we've done everything we can to put ourselves in the best position to have success. Now it's just time to go out and compete.
Paul, we have some questions coming in from the audience, but one question that's on my mind is if you think about how the game has changed over the years, right? Sam Hume wants to know, given your proclivity for big hits while at PSU, what's your take on the targeting rule and how that's been enforced? A rule that's come under a lot of scrutiny early on in this college football season thus far. Talk about how the game has changed, specifically related to targeting.
Yeah, challenging situation, right? And challenging rule, because it's one of those things where, okay, you say the people in charge that have the right intentions, right? They want our players to play safe and be healthy, but the game of football is we love it because of certain aspects of it, because it is a tough game. There is pain involved. And that's what makes the game of football so special to so many people. Now so it's a fine line between competing at a level like that, but also being smart and knowing that we have to be able to take care of players on any level, whether you're playing Pop Warner, college football in the Big Ten, or professionally. So it's one of those things that's going to continue to be a challenge, because as a defensive guy, you're saying, man, just let the guys play. Right. But is that right in the long run? Probably not. It's probably good to have some sort of system in place where the players are protected from serious injury. Right. But like everybody knows, that is an extremely fine line, and one that you have to manage carefully.
Paul, I'm thinking about, the story that you just told in the previous answer where the 2003 and 2004 team and how, those players were kind of felt as they approached 2005. I'm sitting here thinking if we had 2 seasons in a row like that, a lot of the students, athletes that you recruited may be entering the transfer portal because they weren't having the kind of success that they thought they might at the institution that they started at. What is your view on the transfer portal and kind of the tenets that Coach Paterno would preach about commitment and loyalty and playing for the guy standing next to you?
I mean, I know, just thinking about that from a Penn State perspective. Number one, even so, the situation that we were in, we had unbelievable support from the Penn State community, from Penn State fans, from everyone around State College. That made an enormous difference. So even though we didn't have the success that we were used to and that Penn State was used to on the field, we never lost the support of the Nittany Lion Nation. That was so powerful. And that changes everything, really. When you know that an entire alumni base, people that love Penn State football, are pulling for you to do well and have success, and you kind of know that we're all in this together, there's no thoughts of leaving. I mean, we're Penn State through and through, and we're going to get this right. You know what I mean? So now the rules have changed since I was there, but that concept of loyalty to a school and your teammates and what you, I mean, as a high school player, you commit to play for a university. And I understand there's different circumstances and things change, but maybe it's old school, but I think there's something important about honoring your commitment that you've made to an organization.
Hey, Paul, you talked about having the support of the Penn State fan base during that time. And I got to say, hearing you tell these stories, it's just incredibly, you have to remember, you guys are 19, 20, 21 years old. You guys are exhibiting a tremendous amount of maturity. But did you have the sense that, I don't want to use the word surprise, but when you had that support of the fan base through those years, was that kind of reassuring to you, this is why I came to Penn State in the first place, and I would guess served as a motivating factor for 2005?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had the opportunity to visit Penn State when I was young. I mean, like 10, 11 years old, because a great family friend of mine were Penn State alumni. They went back to games. So I went to a Penn State football game, and you see 100,000 people in a stadium, and you're like, this is unbelievable. The hometown Pittsburgh Steelers had 55, 60,000 people, and there's almost twice as many here. So that environment, and knowing that you had that type of support, regardless of the scoreboard or what your record was. I mean, that, like I said, I can't describe how powerful that is, to know that you have as a Penn State student athlete, as someone that, when you wear that blue and white and you know that you have an entire community supporting you, and wanting what's best for you in the university, that's so powerful.
Paul, let me throw some questions up here on the screen that have come in. First of all, who on your team did the best Joe Pa impression?
Oh, that's the best Joe Pa impression. Who had Tony Hunt had an unbelievable Joe Paterno impression. He was great.
How about, where did you live when you were a student here at Penn State?
My freshman year, I lived in Shunk Hall. And then after that, after my freshman year, we the student athletes, they like to keep us close to the football building. So we lived in Nittany Apartments.
Gwen Neese wants to know who your favorite roommate was and why.
I was very fortunate to have unbelievable roommates. So through my final 3 years, my roommates were Jason Gander, Brendan Peretta, and Patrick Weber. All guys that bled blue and white, Penn State guys through and through. To pick one of them would be a disservice to the other two. So I was very fortunate to have unbelievable roommates, and they really made my Penn State experience so special.
Now, Paul, one of the iconic things about your look as you played was the long hair. You're more clean cut now, but Lori Bowers, you hazy. Love the romance novel cover hair.
That was a phase, it's a clean cut while at school. And then, okay, you have an opportunity to go into the NFL and branch out a little bit. But then I realized it was time to get married and get that Penn State professional look again. So then I've had a short haircut ever since.
Hey, just kind of sticking with Penn State for the next question or two. I said in the opener, a lot of people, myself included, think of you when we think of, linebacker, you epitomizing linebacker. You talked about the great linebackers who played there before you. How mindful were you of your legacy at Penn State? Was that something you thought about during your playing days? And even now, like when you look back, like how do you want fans and alumni to remember you as a player and as a student athlete at Penn State?
While you're playing, at least for me, and I think a lot of the guys that I was with, I mean, you're so involved in the moment and in everything that's going on that, man, you just want to do the best job you can. There's no concern about almost anything that happens afterwards. You say, I'm a Penn State football player. I want to wear this jersey and represent it the best way that I know how and compete at the highest level. Then moving on from that, I guess it's funny. One of my Penn State teammates asked me about, like, what do you want people to ask me the same question? And I said, I just hope they know that I played as hard as I could. I hope I'm remembered as someone that was tough, because my dad would appreciate that. And when I was a freshman, Coach Paterno said, basically said, you need to toughen up or you're not going to play here. This is a couple weeks into my freshman year, and I said, wow, okay, I need to change my mentality a little bit. So I mean, I would hope that people remember that he was a tough player that did things right and that always tried to represent Penn State the best way he knew how.
I think of some of the great environments in college football, and Beaver Stadium is certainly one of those. And I think of some of the iconic games. I think to the 2005 Ohio State game, night game, national television, number 6 Ohio State coming to town. Talk about the environment in Beaver Stadium and how it was to play in front of that crowd.
I mean, so to this day, and you're having the opportunity to play on Sunday night football, Monday night football, AFC championship game, that environment, Penn State, Ohio State, night game, whiteout, was I just got chills thinking about it. It was the most dynamic environment that I've ever been in a competitive atmosphere. Never be able to forget it. It was just unbelievable. I mean, the fact that I remember it's the third or fourth quarter, and I'm on the field with Dan Connor, and we're 3 yards apart from each other, yelling at each other, trying to communicate what's going on in the field, and we can't hear each other because of the noise in the stadium and how loud and vibrant the fans were. It was, man, that's what you miss, right? That's what you miss. Environments like that, being surrounded with those guys, being with all those people, and knowing that this is Penn State football. This is what it's all about. And then getting a big win like that on a national stage, it's something that you will never forget.
So you just mentioned playing, in the NFL, being a student athlete at Penn State, playing football at Penn State. We've talked with a lot of lettermen. They talk about, the life lessons that they carry with them to this day. How did being a student athlete at Penn State kind of help prepare you for life in the NFL and even afterward?
It definitely, all the little things that we had to go through, mostly Coach Paterno's rules that we didn't, when you're 19 and 20, you don't know how to appreciate, or you don't know the importance of them. And then once you get out into the NFL where you're on your own, that's when you realize, you say, oh, okay, that's why Coach made us get to meetings 15 minutes early, because it's important. And that stands out, and that shows your commitment and what's important to you. And the importance of having, looking presentable, wearing a shirt and tie, on the road, all those things that you don't really realize the significance of when you're young. It changes things when you're older, and it gives you an advantage, because that is, you're so now accustomed to that, where you say, okay, well, I know how to be a professional because Penn State and Joe Paterno taught me. In those formative years when you're 19, 20, 21, that makes an enormous difference when you're entering in a professional environment like the NFL.
It's funny. I walked over during the pre-show to talk to John and do our run through of what we were going to talk about. And you and Kathy Hume were going on and on about missile defense systems. And I'm like, what world do we live in right now where Paul Posluszny and Kathy Hume are talking about defense systems and missiles? You have not missed a beat from your life. Doesn't seem like it has slowed down one bit from your time in the NFL. You mentioned getting married, 3 kids, you work for Raytheon, right? You're in grad school. Talk a little bit about how Penn State kind of prepared you for that part of your life as well, because you certainly had a successful life on the field, but it seems like you're continuing to thrive off the field as well.
Well, I first want to say how unbelievable it was to talk with Kathy. She's great. It was the first time that we've met, but awesome talking with her. But I mean, going back to Penn State and how it felt prepared for the next level, I think just everything that we've talked about, and the importance of being a professional and carrying yourself the right way, and also just having a competitive drive to do your absolute best to represent the people around you, your family, my parents, Penn State. You know that internally you have the ability to do more, and you want to continue to pursue different things. So fortunately, I was able to have a long career in the NFL. But then when my time was up, I said, okay, so I'm 33 years old, and now it's time to start a second career. So made the decision to go to graduate school, and fortunately, still in graduate school right now, but had the opportunity to join an outstanding company with Raytheon. We're surrounded by unbelievably motivated and driven people who have an important mission. So it's a great environment to be in.
Hey, you referenced, the support and the passion from Penn State alumni, living in Jacksonville and traveling the country and maybe the world. Do you have any, special or crazy we are moments where you were somewhere and somebody came up to you and just, kind of shouted "we are," and you had to stop and look around and think like, how am I running into a Penn Stater here?
It's amazing that happens all the time. And now, so we still live in Jacksonville, Florida now, where I finished my NFL career. And you'll see someone with a Penn State hat or a Penn State shirt, every once in a while, and you give them the shout, and they immediately acknowledge it. So it is a tight knit group, regardless of where you're at. I've definitely noticed that, where it's a group of people that definitely stick together. Give you guys a short story. So still in graduate school right now, and one of the classes that I'm taking, we had to form groups of 4. It's me and 2 other Penn Staters that have come together. Now the third member, I have to admit, she's a Michigan grad. But she's unbelievable. She's the brains of the entire operation. But so it's 3 Penn Staters got together and teamed up with a Michigan grad. So it's one of those things where you feel this special connection, right? Regardless of the situation, the environment, you feel this special connection with Penn State.
Well, Paul, I don't want to ruin any surprises for our fans or kind of let anything out of the bag, but you're going to be making a return to Happy Valley this season. What does that feel like, thinking about coming home for the first time in a while?
I can't wait. You guys showed clips of the stadium, and I'm like, man, number one, it's been too long since I've been there. But just to be in that environment again, I'm looking forward to it so much. It's one of those things that you're playing in the NFL. It's a challenge to get back to Penn State during the fall, during the season. But now we're super excited to have the opportunity to come back to campus, see a game, be in the Penn State environment, because it's something that you miss. You think about it all the time, and I'm saying, wow. Just really excited to have the opportunity to come home.
Paul, we want to thank you for joining us on Football Letter Live. Academic All-American, All Big Ten, All-American, starred in the NFL for 11 years. It's been great to have you on the program. Absolutely personifies success with honor. If there was a logo for Linebacker U, it would be your silhouette. I am most certain of that.
You guys are too good to me. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure talking with you, and great being on the show. Thank you so much.
Take care, Paul.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. You too.
John, great to catch up with Paul Posluszny. I mean, I just think of some of our all-time favorite players, and he is certainly in the top 10 list for most Penn Staters.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to describe what just happened. It's, yeah, I mean, what you just said is so true. And Paul was in school, like when I was in school, and I feel like, players who you see play while you're in school, I feel like there's kind of like a special connection there because, you watch them play at a time in your life when you were at Penn State, being a student as well. And so, but yeah, you talk about, a quintessential Penn Stater on the field, off the field. I mean, can you just imagine how much success he's going to have, like, for the rest of his career? Like, he has class tonight. I don't even think we mentioned that, but he has class at 8:15 for his graduate school. So even before we start, he's like, hey guys, I got class tonight, 8:15. I got to make sure I hit the books tonight. And so it's, he's keeping the things that are important at the top of the list, and just wish him all the success and happiness in the world with him and his family, and however he chooses to, to have an impact on the world.
Yeah, it's interesting. People think success with honor is just a cool slogan. And then you meet someone like Paul Posluszny, who continues to live that, right? I mean, his academic All-American, right, finishes his pro career. And not only is going for his MBA, right, but he's going to Carnegie Mellon for his MBA, right? It's the Tepper School of Business at Carnegie Mellon is one of the top business schools in the country. Doesn't compare to Smeal, but it's up there. I mean, so he's jumping in. I think of John Urschel, right, who's kind of jumped into one of the toughest math PhD programs in the country, and Posluszny's doing the same thing. But that success with honor, I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a slogan. They live it, they embody it. You see it in action every single day. Yeah, just, could not wish him more success and happiness, and just could not be happier for him. I mean, he's going to be inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. That's a given. To me, he had a Hall of Fame career in the NFL. I mean, you talk about how successful he was. We might be asked like one NFL question. We talked with for like a half hour. Like, I think we got to have him back on like next year, if not like sooner. It's like,
well, we talked about resiliency, right? I mean, 11 years playing linebacker, and like, he wasn't a kicker, right? No offense to kickers out there, but he played 11 years at linebacker, and was resilient in kind of being able to endure through that career. Yeah, absolute Hall of Fame career on both levels, and it looks like he's going to have a Hall of Fame business career with his Penn State finance degree and his MBA from Carnegie Mellon. So we could go on and on. I think we're a little bit we're fanboying over here a little bit, but we have the Cardinals from Ball State coming to town. John, what are your thoughts on that? The keys to the game.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's one of those things. Normally, I would say, don't overlook Ball State because they're so good and they had such a good record last year. But I feel like people we know that, the success that they have in the MAC. And so, my thoughts are, one, they didn't have any turnovers last week. I think I said before the show, if you would have said that they would have 0 or 1 turnover, they would probably be a favorite. It was a 1-possession game. And so that was a tough game to open with, but I think that's going to really prepare them for the rest of the season. Look, we could talk about on the field stuff. I think the headline is we're going to have a sold out Beaver Stadium. Fans are going to be back. The community is going to be thriving again. And, they should take care of business on the field. But I think, what most people are looking forward is like, look, Happy Valley is back. Penn State football is back. Sold out Beaver Stadium is back. I mean, look, like I said last week, we're blessed to live in University Park. We drive by or walk by Beaver Stadium every day or a lot of days. This is going to be, it's almost going to be like a little mini homecoming or reunion for a lot of people. Like, this is going to be their first time. And so, on the field, I think, good defense. I'm excited to see what the Mike Yurcich offense looks like in week 2. I mean, I think what we saw in week 1 is an appetizer, to say the least. I think you're going to see a lot more shots down the field. I think that they're going to want to give people things to think about later on in the schedule. But I mean, beautiful weather. Like, yes, it feels like things are coming together for Saturday. We've got alumni in town, and so it's just going to be a good weekend for not only Penn State football, but for Penn State alumni.
Yeah, John, you talk to anyone who's kind of has expertise in football, and they tell you that defenses get started earlier in the season before offenses do. Paul would have told us the same thing, I'm sure. And our defense got off to a great start. Special teams, both punting and coverage were fantastic. I know the kicking game will need to be cleaned up a little bit, but we have 2 outstanding kickers on the team, and I think it was just an off weekend for them. And as you're saying, right, we have so much talent on the offensive side of the ball that I think we'll see some big numbers on the scoreboard this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think it should also be said, guess who else is back this weekend? The Blue Band, all the game day environment, the cheerleaders, the Linettes. I mean, you talk about game day at Beaver Stadium. That's not the same without Greg Drain and the Blue Band marching into Beaver Stadium and firing up 107,000. Like, that's going to give, I'm going to get goosebumps probably on Saturday.
Absolutely. Can you hear it now, John? The "We Want the Lion" cheer?
Oh yeah, of course.
Passing the Lion up in the stadium.
Yeah.
So again, looking forward, as Coach Franklin has called it, the family reunion of 107,000 this weekend for the big game against Ball State, a return to Beaver Stadium after being away for so long. Well, hey, another great show in the books, right? You and I could have just sat here and just let Paul and Kathy talk about missiles all night, and I think that would have been wildly entertaining for our audience. But John, great show. I want to thank our audience for tuning in. We want to mention an opportunity for members and non-members. The Penn State Alumni Association is teaming up with the Pennsylvania Media Group, which publishes Penn Live, to offer joint membership subscriptions at a discounted rate for the first year. Current members who sign up will have their membership extended for an additional year. You can get more information through our website at alumni.psu.edu. John, what can we expect on next week's Football Letter Live?
Yeah, so we've got Penn State author Jordan Hyman. He wrote what I consider to be one of the best books about Penn State football ever. It was called Game of My Life, and he talked with so many lettermen from over the generations, players who from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And he really talked with them about not only their time at Penn State, but how they got to Penn State, how Penn State impacted them, just like we talk about with lettermen. And so we're going to ask Jordan about that. That should be a good time with him. We're also going to spotlight the Rocket City chapter and their president, who I believe has a NASA background. So we talked about missiles this week. Next week, we're going to be talking NASA. And so, of course,
out of this world.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's going to be said next week again, too, which is we will
have one joke. So,
but hey, that's okay. It's you talk about the week that we had last week, the week that we're going to have, the conversations that we just had with Kathy and Paul. There's a lot of reasons to smile and be optimistic and be hopeful and looking forward to a fall in Happy Valley. And so, yeah, Jordan will be on next week, the Rocket City chapter, and we'll carry on we'll continue on the great conversations and continue to keep Penn Staters connected.
Absolutely. Look in your inbox on Saturday. Another edition of the Penn State Football Letter will be in your inbox on Saturday. That will go to all alumni. Members will get the exclusive member benefit of the Football Letter delivered on Monday. So check your email. Follow us. Get more Penn State football content on the Football Letter blog. Follow us on Twitter. Connect to us wherever you can connect to the Penn State Alumni Association and the Football Letter. Thanks for joining us once again. We appreciate all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are
Penn State.